Jamie. Jamie.
Just
this is live stream. This is the technical what we call the live stream of episode 173 because we try and keep track.
Yes.
But this is a live stream nonetheless of the Coffee Sketch podcast, which is the only live streamed architecture podcast that, I mean, we're not the catch-all be-all, right? Our realm is aspects of architectural production, concepting, using the sketch as a tool, so for
demystifying some of the archispeak, even though we do it.
That's a good point.
So
what I mean to say is these sort of like disclaimers at the beginning of this live stream is that we are aficionados and practitioners of architecture, and we're here to help people. And
would you self-identify as a raconteur?
Probably so.
Yeah.
It's not what I don't use that term very much, but I actually do think this totally applies to our podcast.
I think it does. Yeah.
It sounds cooler anyway.
So,
essentially,
as we've been talking about doing sort of trailers and reels and talking about kind of, wow, this 7-year project, who knew? I think we maybe need to drop in some of those sort of fun words and expressions of gratitude for the work that we're doing between the two of us, and collaboration. I mean, we've only recorded together in the same space, folks, twice.
Oh, you remember? I was going to ask because
171 episodes in 2 different places.
Or remotely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I remember it was Texas. I guess it was the Texas conference.
Correct.
And then one AIA?
We've done one
which is kind of sad. The sadder part is that we often get together at AI conferences and we come away, which is what I was saying off script, is we come away with very little recorded information. But that's changing, people. That's changing.
Yes.
Because we have the conference coming up in June this year in Boston, and we just decided to record everything.
Yeah, we're gonna do it all. So if you see us, I mean, we're probably we'll put the disclaimer out right now. I mean that.
Well, let's do the count off. There's going to be a new T-shirt.
That's correct.
We didn't even talk about that, but we're going to remind people.
I'm just going to go with it.
There's going to be a new T-shirt for the podcast.
Yep.
There's going to be wireless microphones, cameras, and a consistent dialogue. Sorry, my hand got moved away from all the things. There's 4 items at least on the agenda.
Can we say that it's going to be fun too? Can we just say it's going to be fun?
At this all together at the same time.
It's always fun. Yeah.
Well, it's always fun, but the problem has been in the past is that the fun results in no recorded content.
Well, it's more of forgetting to, Well, and also, I mean, last year you burned up your GoPro, so I mean,
Well, I have new equipment for those that are paying attention. I have equipment that doesn't. These are the improvements. We have microphones and cameras that don't fizzle overheating.
Yeah, when we're doing interviews. We actually have done interviews. Yeah.
I know. Well, we have, and then we had to do, So, Jamie.
Well, I shouldn't say that.
I don't even know if you know that I've replaced all the cameras that burn up. I've replaced them with ones that do not.
3. We've recorded 3 times together because we've done 2 interviews in person together.
That's right.
And then a third where we almost interviewed Ilya, but he was very busy doing other things, and he only wanted barbecue from us. And
Well, we did establish the barbecue, and Chris is watching.
yeah,
So hey, Chris.
there's probably others watching too, but
Yeah. Well, we know. Well, Chris,
we know because Chris
put
has
in
identified
put a note in
himself.
the chat.
Yes, yeah,
We're going to see Chris in Boston at
yes.
the conference for sure, and so that's going to be a good time. And
I'm going to be in Philly and then in Boston, like all within like I don't know what's like.
really,
Yeah, it's
are you
crazy.
do you have to go to Philly, then home, then back?
So
Out
yeah,
east?
so I've got a national conference for Main Street in Philly
Oh yeah.
in April, and then I'll be back for Boston in June. So like yeah, it's like suddenly this is the Jamie travel year, you know.
Yeah. You know, just be safe because FAA has gotten some questionable activity going on. I don't want to risk my co-host in the air.
Oh, the FAA.
You know, flying. Yeah, FAA flying. Yeah,
Okay,
flying is scary right now.
I thought you were like FAIA. I'm like, what does the fellows have to do with my trip?
That's probably why the flights are so bad. The fellows are
because they've got a bunch of architects who are like watching the little planes move on the screen.
they're like, oh,
Yeah.
the pattern language.
Yeah. They're like, this just doesn't align. Like the alignment's all off. Like we need,
Oh man.
this is a figure field diagram. What is this?
Yeah, we don't need. Yeah, well, I don't want to dwell on the sad news, but yeah. Fly safe, my friend. Because
Thank you. All right, so you ready to go?
Scary.
You ready for the episode? You warmed up? You feel like it?
I mean, I'm warm. I'm
are you
always
there?
warm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even though I'm in Michigan, I'm still always warm.
What's the temperature? Let's do a temp check.
Well, today was a bit of an out. Well, I want to say outlier, but it dipped down. We got snow last night, so it's like 30. What you got in Texas?
It's currently 68. We had a high today of what was that? 74.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a heat wave.
I mean, what's crazy is like, but so we got 74 at the high end, and we got like 41 in the morning. So it was like,
41 would be nice too.
Yeah, I mean yeah, but that 35 degree swing in a day is just
Well, today, so I'll just tell you before we go into the episode. This morning was 28 or 27. Feels like 7.
Yeah.
That's a different. Yeah.
No, I know. I mean,
different story.
I will say, that's, when people ask me, like, are you ever moving back
to Montreal?
That's the reason not to move back to Canada. It's like,
should I just hit this?
Yeah, you should. Let's
intro
go to the
button.
Yeah, let's go to the intro.
Hey, Jamie. How's it going?
Well, I mean, that whole like green room experience, today was a lot. And
what is the question? Why are more people not watching the live stream?
No, we have a live stream.
I know. Well, I mean, yes, we do. I was trying to be cheeky.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and in that cheekiness, realizing like, oh my gosh, there's more content than what's coming across in these podcast episodes.
Yeah, I know a lot of people. I mean, I know a lot of our listeners listen to the audio, which is edited, cleaned up,
Yes. It's cleaned up,
tightened up,
tightened up.
all those things.
Yep. Yep.
But
Agreed.
if you have some time, why not join the live stream? Jamie and I have moved mountains to make Tuesday nights at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, which we probably,
And
if there
90% of
was
the
a fault,
time,
if there
and
was a
90,
fault, I would say we've not advertised the live stream time well enough.
this is true. And
But
it is not
it's
Tuesday night
pure
tonight.
gold.
Is it Tuesday night?
Oh, today's Thursday.
Today's Thursday. Yeah. See,
So we move it. So sometimes it does move people, but but
but it's not
it's a
like a Teams
typical
meeting.
it's
It's
a
not like that
typical
Teams meeting
Tuesday.
that somebody scheduled and then moved on you and then moved on you again. Yeah. It's
Well,
not that.
we're doing our darndest to make it more regular on Tuesdays. However, yes, if there was a ding, a ding to take, I will take it. Don't blame Jamie. Uh, yeah, it's usually me, because of my dog, which is no longer in the room. But I'll blame the dog that we're not on Tuesdays every single Tuesday. But we do aim for Tuesday nights. But
And we've someone who is pointing out very astutely in the chat that because we do have
oh yeah,
listeners,
right.
folks, and
Technology.
because of the
Technology.
technology of this whole live streaming platform, is that we can actually go off a script. Oh wait, there is no script, and actually respond and react to comments, including those that are pointing out that you can set notifications if you sort of you
Right.
know find your
Yes.
way to follow and subscribe and etc. Um, that yeah, we're doing the thing. It's
Yeah.
live.
Thanks, Jamie, and also thanks, Chris. N3 Architecture. If you guys don't know Chris at N3 Architecture, you should, because you know he's got a lot of stuff going on his page. I don't know, web page. It sounds like all of his digital arena. That sounds
He likes to share is
yeah.
basically what you're
Chris is
saying.
great at
Yes.
it.
Yeah. And I think that's
We
the,
look up to Chris.
so yeah. I mean, well, I think it's, the thing is that there are colleagues out there, and
Yeah.
we've been fortunate to get to know multiple networks of them who like to share,
Well,
share
he's
with,
going to be our host this June, whether he knows it or not. But the AI conference is in Boston this summer, and Chris is in the Boston area, so
so that
he's
means,
gonna get an earful from
yeah,
Jamie and I.
he needs to, we want all the things, we want all the lists, all the personalized lists of places to go, places to see, those you know,
Well, Chris is a great host. I
back of
know.
house, go
We've
do this
already
tour. Yeah.
put the challenge out, and so yeah, thanks for joining, Chris, listening to the live stream. But and anyone else that's also on the live stream that's not chatting, the reason we're responding to Chris on the chat. But um anyway, so Jamie, we've had quite a conversation before, right? Before the recording. Um so what's in your coffee cup? Because
Well,
mine might come with a little political bent,
okay.
but we'll see. We'll
No,
see.
you're not going to say like something about snake oil again. We did that in the last
No,
one. Okay.
we're moving past.
Moving past the snake oil. Well, I just needed like the jolt, right? I needed the jolt of something
Ooh.
local and something I haven't had in a long time. Maybe one that I've never even mentioned on the podcast. Going back to Little City. So Austin
Mm.
original, not the Grackle, which I know you like. not the Violet Crown, which I've talked about that I need to send you, which is another. That's probably one of my favorites. But they have an espresso that they call it the Messenger espresso. Like, and I kind of imagine it like the bike messenger, and there's actually a bike messenger like on the logo there. So like the messenger bag, like when I carried the laptop around like a soldier, and
Well, I mean, like
that's
many
what,
architects do.
yeah, like many architects do, right? Um, yeah. So it's I feel seen, by this coffee, and yeah, it's quite good. It has some notes of honey in it, which I always sort of forget that I really do. You know, I do like that with coffee from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
So the beans have that. I think I'm not sure where this one is from. But yeah, they usually get small lots, micro lots, and things like that they work with certain folks who are um, part of their kind of coffee family. But yeah, Little City Messenger Espresso
I mean,
in the cup.
the stuff that I've received from Little City from Jamie has been fantastic, and I'm actually uh the hints the hints are over now. Please, Jamie, send Little City
This is.
because you talked about it too much. Care package, please send.
Do you remember that time, like when, like, and I'm not gonna say, but it was when you were like being, um, like when your coffee intake was being dialed down
Oh yeah,
by
years ago.
elements, by there was a point in your life
Yeah,
where you were like,
there was a health
like
concern. Sure,
right,
sure, sure,
it was
sure.
like sort of like a, like, I felt like I was sending care packages past the demilitarized zone.
Well, I'll just have you know that being a friend and a, a family member of the podcast, right? A founder. Yeah, Danielle did not uh, police too hard, but yeah, yeah. Luckily, that phase is over in
Good,
life.
good,
So
good.
yeah,
Yeah,
health.
no, that's good.
Yeah,
It's important.
if you want the health update.
Yep, that's good. That's important.
But yeah, I just realized I was looking at the clock and I was like, I know Jamie and I, although let's be honest, Jamie is more interested than Kurt, unfortunately, in watching Messi play some football.
Yes.
For those the purists,
Yeah.
football is happening soon, so we got to keep the ship moving.
Yep.
So I will just be brief. I'm still drinking a coffee, a Guatemalan roast, a medium roast of coffee, which is actually at the end. But I will get back to the farmers market tomorrow and grab some new stuff because there's some new stuff in the Flint farmers market that I only have heard hints of. So let that be a little surprise
All right.
for
So
next.
that'll be for next time.
Yeah. So the next live stream, which we plan to maintain on Tuesday nights
We might try and sneak an episode in on the weekend. If we do,
or weekend.
we might,
But
because
like Chris said,
we're
if
almost
you
up.
just click notification, you'll be reminded.
And we're almost up to that milestone, folks. We're almost up to 175.
Yeah, we're
I don't
nearly
know
there.
why these artificial numbers. It's artificial rules, just like in the sketching, which we
Well,
probably should get to. Don't you think?
I
Is it time?
agree.
Yeah. Okay.
175 is a number. However, oh, I got it. There we go. But and let me just turn off the captions. There they go. So now we have full frame. So first of all, so Jamie's got this week is going to be 100% Jamie. No
I think
AI, because
I
we
think
no
we just
AI needed.
yeah, I
No
think we just
AI
stay on this
needed.
one. Let's just stay on this one. This one's tight
Because
for this episode. This is good.
because
We could save the other one for another day.
sounds good. So there's been a lot. I mean, I'll just say one piece is there's been a lot going on in the United States government. But I think as in this case, I will call the podcast small, being that we are a little piece of a big picture condition, but supporters of and constant supporters of uh, the situation in Ukraine. And I just want to say that we don't want to ignore the fact that lives have been shed to support the sovereignty of Ukraine. Jamie's sketch, I'm looking at it with fresh eyes, so I'm going to let Jamie kind of explain a little bit about it. But to me, as an architect, looking at Jamie's sketch with what we talk about on a regular basis on this podcast, which is a black and white sketch. Jamie, rarely uses color, and in this instance, and I don't want to make it too heavy, but the fact that Jamie applied two simple washes of color, which are blue and yellow, which represent Ukraine, is all to me that sort of sets the tone of the importance of what we have to say in architecture as understanders or developers of the built environment. That's all I'm going to say is that what we are witnessing in Ukraine is 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 more than words can describe. And the simple diagram of blue and yellow that Jamie put on the sketch says it all. And I know Jamie will describe into more detail about it. I can't capture everything,
No,
but I love setting up the sketch, and I
well, and
appreciate you letting me do that.
yeah,
With some quiet. Yeah.
no. I think it's um, you know, you honed in on exactly what we would do as a designer, as an architect. Is it's you teach a lot of students right now. Is sort of that what's the why? What's that simple move? What's that very subtle thing that you can do that's so deliberate on the page that the sketch isn't even one of my best sketches, right? It's like, I mean, I critique it and go, could I have done Zelensky better? Yes, absolutely. But it's poignant, and it would have been poignant without the colors, right? And it would have evoked the conversation. But as you point out, like, I don't, there is a method to my madness, with the way that I try and set up these sketches as coffee sketches. Is it's the coffee cup, it's the sketchbook, it's the pen, it's the pencil, it's the implement. We joke about it when
Well,
we talk about with AI, who
partly,
adds
part
55 pencils to me. But
to to interrupt. This is the perfect epitome of less is more, right? There's only three things going on in the sketch. There's a pencil sketch and two colors,
that's it.
and the whole point is set on the table,
Well, and
right,
and I
Jamie?
think and I think that the thing too is that there's always layers of meaning to things, right? And so, you know, I always try and reveal a little bit about the thinking behind a sketch. Sometimes there isn't very much. Sometimes it's just sort of thoughts that are kind of rolling around in my head that I'm trying to sort out. You know, which is probably still the case here. It's but as Kurt and I always say with sort of our introduction is we're talking about our daily lives. We're talking about popular culture. We're talking about those cultural influences on our work as artists and architects, and just, people out in the world. Um, so, as, Black History Month was sort of ending, one of my favorite artists that I was so fortunate to see a work of his that I'd never seen in person before, Basquiat. I saw that in DC on a recent trip, and I saw it against a Banksy. So it was, Banksy and Basquiat, like two artists that are just, uh, graffiti artists, provocateurs, but poignant in their critique of society and kind of realizing what's kind of going on in the world, and trying to communicate that through their art. And that just resonates with me. That's just, that's, cuts right to my soul. Right. So Basquiat is just somebody that, it's always going to be there. That's always going to be my touchstone, to try and figure out more of his work, see more of it when I get the opportunity to. And, the other thing too, is that there's a lot of communities that are under attack right now, and one of which is, our friends in the LGBTQ, IA plus,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's, as allies, Kurt and I, you know, have so many friends and family members and whatnot who, are part of that community. And so, there's a sketch sort of blurred out on the left that was sort of the day before, um, and, to kind of end Black History Month, and it was Basquiat with Keith Haring, um, and sort of in doing, and I got a book about Basquiat that I didn't have before. I always love to add to the architect's library, but in that, I I found out that when Basquiat passed away, Keith Haring was asked, by I believe Vogue magazine, and I put that in the post. Actually, is they asked him to write like like an in memoriam, like an
Mm.
obituary, for his friend, and because both of them were basically the same age ish, right? And both in New York at the same time, early '80s. This is sort of before the AIDS crisis, or just as it's sort of kind of happening, and they're running around with people like Madonna and the Velvet Underground and Andy Warhol and
Hmm.
other artists and musicians, and just sort of this whole scene, Kenny Scharf, all these graffiti artists, amazing stuff. And so it it's there's stuff that's sort of fascinating to me to try and understand and try and read about that period, and the influence of it. But I say all that because suddenly I'm watching the news and I'm listening to about what's kind of going on with Ukraine, and literally on February 28th, you know, where we as a country, through our leadership, basically turns its back, on what's kind of going on with one of our allies. That they're the backstop to democracy in Europe, and um, and watching that in real time was just like, just it just hit me. And because you're having these sort of cultural moments. And what was funny was my brain went to Andy Warhol and sort of that 15 minutes of fame, 15 seconds, as everybody sort of accelerates it now and talks about it today. But so i I was trying to think. There were some images of Warhol that I had in my head, and I went and found a photograph where he had done sort of his own self-portrait using a Polaroid camera, shake it like a Polaroid, picture, for those, who know the reference. Um, but, so you got Andy Warhol using the Polaroid, and instead of him taking a picture of himself, which is what the, what the portrait actually is, I inserted Zelensky.
Hmm.
And, and as Kurt has pointed out, the added touch of two really small color washes, spoke to him, spoke to me, um, and I think spoke to the moment.
Yeah, and I know I don't want to dwell on it too long, but the concept of architecture is political or architecture is not political is, I think we lean on the side that architecture is always political. And just the essence of the sketch, which I knew, yeah, with the sort of familiar image of Warhol and the Polaroid behind, which is in a very light. I mean, if we want to talk just about sort of the aesthetic um, representation of a sketch, in this case, the pencil drawing is very lightly drawn, right? We often talk about technique. Sometimes we move past very quickly, but in this case, if we want to go back to that a little bit, right? Of the subject, the sketch is a very light press of the pencil on the page, with then another light press of color. Only bit of color is a tinge of blue and yellow, which represent the Ukrainian flag, over across the Polaroid, which is a fantastic composition, which is what I love about Jamie's uh, ability to this sort of touch on political conditions without overtly beating it over your head, essentially. And and then so the Polaroid image of what Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, in the Polaroid with the blue and yellow is just so cleanly done, and so why this makes the whole point of today's conversation, I mean, is that the you know architecture, our role in architecture, I should say, is to not stand by, but to stand up and speak to the things that are happening, um, and use what we learn, right? Like our tools are graphic, drawings, photographs, visual tools. Use those tools, right? To at least take a stance. And I don't want to get too political about it, but not saying something is, I think, worse than saying the things that we want, the things that we want to say about it.
Well, and I think that's the whole thing, is that I think that we're I appreciate the way you sort of frame this, is that it's we have to say, we have to be true to ourselves. We have to be true to our beliefs. um, as architects, there's we've both been in plenty of conversations with our profession, because both of us have served in roles. I'm currently serving in a role. um, and but aside from that, is that you're it's not just representation of other individuals, it's sort of representation of ideas, it's representation of a profession. It's about um, speaking to the role that we play as architects. Hopefully, we I think as a profession, and even for the students that are maybe listening, is that we kind of get into this where we think that we can make a difference, and we think about trying to make design decisions that are, we're listening to communities, we're listening to certain situations, we're trying to be creative about certain aspects of things. And in doing that, I think that we believe that we can make a difference, and we can make a change, and work collaboratively both with communities but also our peers. And I think what oftentimes frustrates folks is that when we do get into situations where we're talking more as a profession, is that some of that slows down, and slows down to the point where taking that position is sort of calculated, and that political calculus, or that calculus that kind of goes on, uh, really diminishes the spirit of the way Kurt spoke about this sketch, which just makes me feel good about what I tried to do, because he, like others who saw it and sort of sent me a note, it resonated with folks, and it was subtle. And that's the thing about art and architecture, is that it can speak to a moment. It should speak to a moment. It should speak to the present. It should also acknowledge sort of the lineage of other artists, other architects, other cultures, and find ways to incorporate that into our own work. I mean, Warhol, famously, did lithographs of Mao, right? And at the same time, did lithographs of Marilyn Monroe. So what are we trying to talk about here? And I think that that's the cult of personality around some of these individuals, and how we frame those conversations is really, really important. But I think that in this particular instance, I mean, Kurt's right to say that the sketch is done very, very lightly. I find that when I've been having trouble sketching, and that I want to do something that's like this, where it's a challenge, I know I'm going to be challenging myself, is that I, like others, will give myself the implement that I feel, that I'm allowed to make a mistake. The pencil allows me to make that mistake. There isn't any erasures that are in this sketch. Kurt's, conveniently zoomed up really up on it. I've not done any, but you can sort of see the light tones and how they're built up. I'm still doing it really fast, because that's just the way I do tend to sketch. But it's, the framework of, and the other thing too, as a subject, Andy Warhol with his white hair and sort of very, you know, stylized profile of, how he kind of presented himself, the pose, even with the camera in this particular case, with the fingers kind of all kind of in a, almost like a puzzle. It made it easier to draw those than I was thinking it even would be. But I think that the last part was just the one that I probably spent the most time trying to make sure was right and deliberate, was Zelensky's face, and so that's maybe that's a drawing of the moment.
Well, one other thing too, though, which you mentioned, right? Which I want to actually amplify. Lastly, before we cut off and move on to some, let's say, lighter things, like watching Messi play football, which is good for all of us to find those moments in life to take a break, a breather from things. But you mentioned the choice of pencil over pen for you, because we've done this for 7 years. As if people don't realize, we've talked we've done this on a podcast for 7 years. Jamie and I have done this with each other for more than that time.
Right. Absolutely.
Let's limit it to the time span of the podcast, in the sense that, yeah, Jamie's definitive sketches that are going to be a sketch are a black pilot pen on paper. And his admittance to the fact that his tentativeness or tenuous nature to the subject, uh, leading to a pencil sketch, is something I want to at least portray to my students, since Jamie at the moment is not in a teaching role, but will be soon. We know this. Has in the past, will be back to the classroom. Um, to my students, you know, these are the thoughts of any artist or designer, right? Is if you have some apprehension in the process, is what I'm trying to get at. Is it just go for it with whatever media you feel most comfortable in to get the concept started. And Jamie over here with multiple years of experience admitting to taking a step back from, say, that black pilot pen on paper to a pencil and paper sketch, and then sort of drilling into the Zelensky portrait. I think it speaks a lot to beyond just the political atmosphere, but also to our professional and technical mindset. Right? Is like, how do we try and begin to portray information? So anyway, I'm sure, I don't know if Jamie expected me to go down that rabbit hole and that diatribe, but I really picked up on that, and I just wanted to let everyone else know that we talked to a lot of times. It's my students lately, and I totally love to share these kinds of things in the process. So
No,
thanks, Jamie.
thank you, and I I appreciate your um, recognition of that, and realizing that it's it is a process, and there is some vulnerability with the work that we do and that we talk about, that both of us talk about, in the things that we're doing. And we're doing that because we honestly, it's good for us, but it's something that we realize that maybe we missed at times. And there we've talked about our mentors in different roles and different capacities before. Um, but sometimes there's some gaps in that, and if we have an opportunity to share a little bit more, um, like you deftly described it, in terms of my own process with this particular one. And I'm glad we took the time to talk about this today, because I think it's definitely it weighs on, a lot of things are weighing on a lot of people. And this is a way for us to engage it, as you say, without um, spending all of the time on the political discourse, but talking about our feelings with related to the work, and talking about the art and architecture, and we didn't even go there talking about that there should be a federal style. So you know um, we could have, but we didn't.
Well, there's episodes in the future, but the point is, I think what we do on this podcast is to try and do things with a positive bent, and regardless of the atmosphere that surrounds us, and our even if it just is down to the simple banter between Jamie and I about what coffee we're drinking. The whole point about it is to try and keep things positive, light, in moving in a direction that encourages a more inclusive atmosphere rather than exclusive. And then the artwork is the icing on the cake, in my opinion. Is the detail, right? It's just the bit of fun that we can dig into. And so anyway, so yeah, thanks, Jamie. I mean, you're always, your work is always appreciated, and I'm doing my best to try and
No, no,
to
you
match
are,
you
you are. I
with
mean,
my own sketches in my own way. But yeah, this podcast is only all about being positive and fun and inclusive, and we hope to see everyone else uh, listening or watching in the near future, but no pressure, since we don't always have a very accurate timeline. But
working
thank you,
on it.
Jamie.
Thanks, buddy.